Silence sharpens power. Welcome to a voice that teaches how to control your emotions and reclaim your life. Expect practical tools that change reactions into choices. 10 chapters guide you through mastering calm, harnessing the pause, chosen silence, reacting less, conscious awareness, feeling control, turning chaos into clarity, staying grounded, mindful detachment, and choosing peace. Hosted by Jessica on Premium Audiobooks, this channel delivers crisp narration, daily tactics, and lessons you can use immediately. Subscribe for consistent, high-impact audio that trains your mind, improves relationships, and builds lasting resilience. Hit subscribe to grow wiser every listen. Begin the journey now. Number 1. Master calm. Respond. Never just react. Calm is not the absence of emotion. It is the mastery of emotion. To master calm is to own the moment when everything around you seems to demand a reaction. It is the quiet power of choosing to respond rather than explode, to breathe instead of panic, to see instead of assume. Most people spend their lives being pulled by emotional impulses, reacting instantly to every challenge, insult, or setback. They mistake reaction for strength, when in truth, it is surrender. The strongest person is not the one who can shout the loudest, fight the hardest, or argue the longest. It is the one who can stay centered when everything tries to shake them. Mastering calm begins with awareness. Every emotion starts with a spark. Something external touches something within, and before the mind can think, the body reacts. The heart rate rises, the muscles tighten, the thoughts begin to race. But that moment between stimulus and response is where power lives. Most people never notice it. They move automatically from trigger to reaction. But if you can become aware of that space, if you can see it and hold it for even a second, you can change everything. That pause is the birthplace of emotional intelligence, the difference between control and chaos. When someone cuts you off in traffic, when a coworker disrespects you, when life throws a sudden problem your way, your instinct will be to react. The mind wants to protect itself, to defend the ego, to regain control of a situation that feels unfair. But true control is not about controlling others. It's about controlling yourself. Responding, rather than reacting, means you choose clarity over impulse. It means you slow down long enough to see what's really happening, instead of letting emotion dictate the story. You realize that anger, fear, frustration, these are just sensations moving through you, not commands you must obey. Calm is built through practice. It is not something you suddenly possess because you read about it once. It is something you cultivate daily. It begins with small choices. When your phone rings with bad news, when someone interrupts you mid-sentence, when plans fall apart, those moments are training grounds. Every time you choose to pause instead of lash out, you are rewiring your nervous system for peace. Every time you breathe deeply instead of raise your voice, you are teaching your mind that you are in charge, not your emotions. Over time, these small victories create an inner foundation of strength. To respond rather than react, you must learn to observe yourself. Watch how your emotions rise and fall like waves. Notice how anger starts as tension in your chest, or how anxiety shows up as tightness in your stomach. When you can see these things without judgment, you begin to separate yourself from them. You are not your anger, not your stress, not your sadness. These emotions are experiences, not identities. By observing them, you take back control. The goal is not to suppress or deny feelings that only builds pressure, but to acknowledge them without letting them rule you. Calm also requires humility. It means accepting that you cannot control what others say or do, only how you interpret and respond to it. The Stoics understood this deeply. External events are neutral. Only our opinions about them create suffering. If someone criticizes you, their words are just sound. What hurts is your interpretation, your attachment to how you think things should be. When you recognize this, you free yourself from the tyranny of reaction. You stop fighting the world and start managing your perception. Imagine standing in the middle of a storm. The wind howls, the rain pounds, the thunder roars, but inside you there is stillness. That stillness does not mean the storm disappears. It means you no longer lose yourself in it. Life will always bring storms, disagreements, disappointments, sudden losses. But when you master calm, you no longer get swept away. You begin to act from reason instead of emotion, from intention instead of impulse. This is not coldness, it is clarity. It allows you to communicate more effectively, make better decisions, and preserve your energy for what truly matters. Calmness also influences how others perceive you. People naturally trust those who remain composed under pressure. When others lose control, they look to the one who remains steady. This is why emotional control is not weakness, it's leadership. A calm presence diffuses tension, inspires confidence, and creates space for thoughtful solutions. In a world where everyone is quick to react, being calm makes you powerful. It makes you different. To build this strength, cultivate practices that center you. Start your mornings in silence, before the noise of the world begins. Sit quietly, breathe deeply, and remind yourself that you control your response to whatever the day brings. Throughout the day, use your breath as your anchor. When tension rises, take one slow breath in and one slow breath out before saying or doing anything. That single breath can change the outcome of an entire situation. It interrupts the emotional surge and allows the rational mind to return. Another practical step is to reframe your triggers. When someone frustrates you, instead of thinking, "They're disrespecting me," shift the thought to, "This is a chance to practice control." Suddenly, the situation becomes a test rather than an attack. Every emotional challenge becomes an opportunity to strengthen your discipline. Over time, you stop dreading difficult people or situations. They become the very tools that build your calm. Self-reflection is equally vital. At the end of each day, review your reactions. Ask yourself, when did I lose my composure? What could I have done differently? Reflection turns mistakes into lessons. The goal is not perfection, but progress. Each time you catch yourself reacting too quickly, forgive yourself and learn from it. Calm grows from patience with yourself and with the world. Calm also requires emotional honesty. Many people mistake suppression for control. They think that not expressing anger means they are in control. But suppressed emotion only hides beneath the surface, waiting to explode later. True calm comes from processing emotions properly. When you feel anger, acknowledge it. Feel it fully without acting on it. Let it move through your body, breathe through it, and then release it. Control is not about locking feelings away. It's about managing them with wisdom. Another part of mastering calm is simplifying your inner world. Much emotional chaos comes from overthinking, overcommitting, and over-identifying with outcomes. You cannot be calm if your mind is constantly cluttered. Prioritize peace, set boundaries, learn to say no. The calmer your environment, the easier it becomes to maintain emotional balance. It's also important to understand that calm does not mean passivity. Responding instead of reacting doesn't mean you tolerate injustice or ignore problems. It means you approach them with clarity and composure, ensuring that your actions come from purpose, not emotion. Anger may arise, but you don't let it steer the wheel. You acknowledge it, use its energy wisely, and act with intention. There will be times when staying calm feels impossible. In those moments, remember this truth: every emotional wave passes. No feeling is permanent. The more you resist it, the stronger it becomes. The more you observe it with patience, the quicker it fades. You are not powerless in the face of emotion. You are the sky watching clouds drift by. The clouds come and go, but the sky remains vast, unshaken, and clear. Mastering calm transforms how you experience life. You stop living in constant reaction to everything around you. You begin to create space between what happens and how you respond. That space is where peace lives, where wisdom grows, where freedom begins. When you stop reacting, you reclaim your energy from things that don't deserve it. You begin to see that most of what disturbs your peace is not the event itself, but the meaning you attach to it. In mastering calm, you become unshakable, not because life stops testing you, but because you no longer lose yourself in those tests. You understand that strength is quiet, patience is power, and restraint is mastery. Each time you respond instead of react, you reinforce that truth within yourself. Calm is not a state you visit, it is a home you build inside. The journey to emotional control is not a destination, it is a lifelong discipline. But every moment of calm you choose strengthens your foundation. Every reaction you resist sharpens your wisdom. Every pause you take deepens your peace. And over time, you will find that the world no longer dictates how you feel. You do. You become the calm in the storm, the steady hand in the chaos, the one who sees clearly when others are blinded by emotion. That is the power of mastering calm. To respond, never just react, and in doing so, you become truly free. Number 2. Pause, power. Emotions obey mindful control. Power begins in the pause. It is that single breath between impulse and action that determines whether a moment becomes chaos or clarity. Most people move through life reacting instantly, pulled by emotion before awareness ever arrives. They say things they later regret, make decisions clouded by anger, or lose focus when fear takes hold. But those who learn to pause discover something extraordinary. The mind listens when you stop rushing to speak. Emotions lose their authority when you choose not to obey them blindly. The pause is where control is reclaimed and awareness becomes the driver of life rather than emotion itself. Every emotion carries energy. Anger surges. Excitement buzzes. Fear tightens. Sadness weighs heavy. When emotion rises, it demands expression, and the untrained mind follows immediately. But the pause is the moment where energy meets awareness. Instead of letting emotion dictate the next move, the pause allows you to witness the emotion as it unfolds. You notice its intensity, its direction, and its message without immediately surrendering to it. This space between feeling and acting is the essence of mastery. It's the difference between saying something destructive in frustration or choosing words that heal instead of harm. Mindful control doesn't mean resistance or suppression. It means recognition and redirection. Imagine your emotions as waves on the surface of the ocean. When you pause, you are no longer being tossed around by the current. You are standing on the shore, watching the waves rise and fall. The waves still exist, but they cannot drown you because you are grounded in awareness. The pause separates you from the chaos of reaction, turning emotion from a master into a messenger. The practice of pausing starts small. You begin by noticing moments that typically trigger you. Interruptions, criticism, sudden change, uncertainty. Instead of rushing to fix or fight, you stop for a few seconds. You breathe, observe the emotion, and ask yourself what is really happening. Often what feels like anger is actually hurt. What feels like impatience is fear. The pause exposes truth beneath reaction. It shows you that emotions are not enemies, but signals, guiding you toward understanding what's unresolved within you. The moment you pause, you transform emotion from an uncontrolled reaction into conscious insight. This ability to pause is what makes a person emotionally powerful. It gives you the rare skill of self-command. When everyone else rushes, you remain centered. When tension rises, you stay deliberate. The world respects those who think before they speak and act with intention rather than impulse. Pausing before reacting allows your higher mind, the part responsible for reason and wisdom, to step in before the primitive brain takes over. Without that pause, life becomes a series of reflexes. With it, life becomes a sequence of deliberate choices. In stressful moments, the pause might only be a second long, but that second can change everything. Consider a difficult conversation where anger starts to surface. Your heart rate quickens, your body tightens, and words begin to form that will escalate the situation. But if you pause, just for one slow breath, you interrupt that automatic pattern. The energy of anger has no outlet for destruction. Instead, it becomes information. You realize you're hurt or misunderstood. And from that clarity, you can express yourself calmly. The situation resolves faster, relationships remain intact, and peace is preserved. That single pause becomes a shield of wisdom. Many people believe control means never feeling strong emotions. But emotional control is not emotional numbness. It is the art of balance, feeling deeply without letting the feeling rule. The pause gives emotions permission to exist without giving them authority to act. It's a moment of respect for yourself and for others. In that silence, you create space for your best self to appear, not the self driven by fear or pride. This is why mindfulness and control are inseparable, because awareness always precedes mastery. When emotions surge, the body responds first. The breath shortens, the muscles tighten, the chest feels heavy. These physical sensations are the body's alarm system. They are invitations to pause. By simply taking a full, conscious breath, you signal to your nervous system that you are safe, that you are not being chased by a threat. This resets your biology and returns control to the mind. That pause between inhale and exhale is where the brain shifts from reaction to reflection. The breath becomes the bridge from emotion to awareness. The pause also protects your energy. Reaction drains strength. Mindfulness restores it. When you react impulsively, you often create problems that require even more energy to fix later. Arguments, guilt, unnecessary conflict. When you pause, you conserve power. You stop giving every situation the right to disturb you. Over time, this conservation builds emotional resilience. You learn that not everything deserves a response. Not every battle is worth fighting. And silence can be far louder than anger. Practicing pause. Power begins with intention. Throughout your day, remind yourself that you have control over when and how you respond. Place small cues in your environment. A simple note that says pause on your desk or an alarm that vibrates quietly during stressful hours. These gentle reminders help retrain the mind to slow down before reacting. Another effective practice is mindful reflection. At night, think about moments when you did or didn't pause. When did emotion lead you astray? When did awareness protect you? Over time, reflection strengthens the habit of mindful control. It's also valuable to question your emotional narratives during the pause. When you feel an emotion rising, ask yourself, is this thought absolutely true? Am I seeing the full picture or just my perspective? Emotions often distort reality by narrowing your focus to one painful angle. Pausing opens that focus again, allowing reason to restore balance. You realize that most of what upsets you isn't permanent, personal, or purposeful. It's just temporary experience passing through. The pause is also a sign of strength in relationships. When you pause before responding to criticism or disrespect, you refuse to be manipulated by another person's energy. Emotional control protects your peace from being hijacked. Responding with calm instead of defensiveness confuses aggression. It cannot feed on stillness. Over time, people learn that your presence is grounded, that your energy cannot be easily provoked. This kind of composure commands respect and sets a tone of maturity in every interaction. There will be times when pausing feels unnatural. The emotional pull will be strong. The desire to prove, defend, or retaliate will whisper loudly. That is precisely when the pause matters most. You will feel the discomfort of restraint, the friction of holding back words that want to escape. But in that moment of silence, something greater grows: discipline. Each time you resist reaction, you strengthen your inner foundation. What once required effort becomes instinct. The pause becomes part of who you are. To live with pause power is to live intentionally. It's walking through life with the awareness that emotions are servants, not rulers. They are signals meant to guide, not chains meant to bind. You stop seeing control as suppression and start seeing it as liberation. You are no longer a prisoner of moods, no longer at the mercy of the external world. The pause gives you space to think, to choose, to act with wisdom instead of reflex. When you look at the calmest and most composed individuals, understand that their serenity was not inherited. It was trained. They built it through thousands of moments of mindful pause, each one strengthening their control. Their peace is not a gift. It is a discipline. They learned that nothing gained from reaction is ever worth the peace it costs. Every time they paused, they reaffirmed that emotions obey awareness, not the other way around. The more you practice this, the more you realize that life slows down in a beautiful way. Problems that once felt urgent lose their grip. Words that once cut deeply no longer sting the same. You become selective with your attention, intentional with your energy, deliberate with your responses. The pause becomes your constant companion, an invisible armor that guards your peace without hardening your heart. Over time, pause power transforms your identity. You no longer define yourself by how you react, but by how you choose. The storms still come, but they no longer control the direction of your day. You gain the ability to move through emotion rather than be consumed by it. The pause becomes your inner compass, guiding you toward clarity in confusion, patience in pressure, and wisdom in every challenge. Emotions are powerful, but awareness is greater. When you pause, emotion bows to mindfulness. The energy that once controlled you becomes fuel for understanding. The world around you may be loud, demanding immediate reaction, but your strength lies in your silence. In that still second where you decide your next move. The pause is not hesitation. It is precision. It is the quiet mastery that separates those who are driven by life from those who drive life themselves. That is the true power of mindful control, to pause, and in that pause to command your world. Number 3. Inner strength grows through chosen silence. Silence is not emptiness. It is depth. It is the quiet space where the mind learns to see clearly, where strength is built, not through noise or resistance, but through understanding. In a world that constantly demands reaction, explanation, and validation, silence becomes rebellion. It is the act of reclaiming your energy from the chaos of opinions, judgments, and expectations. Chosen silence is not withdrawal from life. It is an intentional return to self. It is the decision to listen instead of argue, to observe instead of interrupt, to reflect instead of rush. In that stillness, something remarkable happens. The noise within begins to settle, and inner strength quietly takes root. Most people misunderstand silence. They see it as weakness, as if quiet means powerless. Yet silence is one of the most powerful responses you can give, because it cannot be manipulated or misinterpreted. Words often create confusion. Silence creates understanding. When you choose silence deliberately, you are not ignoring reality. You are mastering it. You are showing that you do not need to prove your worth through words, that your peace is not negotiable, and that your strength comes from discipline rather than dominance. This kind of silence is not passive. It is active awareness. Inner strength grows when you stop reacting to every external disturbance. The mind gains clarity when it no longer tries to win every argument or defend every opinion. In silence, you see things as they are, not as emotion paints them. The world becomes sharper, more truthful. You begin to notice details you once missed. The tone behind words, the emotions behind actions, the patterns behind events. Chosen silence refines perception. It trains the mind to move beyond impulsive thinking and into thoughtful observation. The strongest people are not those who always speak, but those who know when silence says more than words ever could. Silence is also where self-awareness is born. In the quiet, there are no distractions to hide behind. You hear your thoughts more clearly. You notice the stories your mind repeats. You see your insecurities, your fears, your patterns of reaction. Though this can feel uncomfortable at first, it is where transformation begins. Strength is built through facing yourself honestly. You cannot improve what you refuse to see, and silence holds the mirror steady. As you spend time with your own thoughts, you learn to separate truth from emotion, clarity from confusion. You stop being controlled by the noise inside because you understand its source. Chosen silence is an act of restraint. It is easy to speak, to vent, to defend. It takes courage to hold your peace when everything in you wants to respond. When you practice silence, you develop control over your impulses. This control is not about suppression, it's about wisdom. You realize that not every thought deserves a voice and not every moment requires reaction. There is power in patience, dignity in calm, and strength in measured response. By staying silent, you give yourself the time to choose words that heal rather than harm. In relationships, chosen silence is a mark of emotional maturity. When disagreements arise, silence can create space for understanding. Instead of fueling tension with quick replies, it allows both sides to breathe. Silence communicates that you value peace more than pride. It invites reflection rather than escalation. Often, silence can reveal the truth of a situation. People expose their intentions when you stop defending yourself. The one who can remain quiet in conflict shows mastery over ego, for silence is not surrender. It is self-respect in motion. Silence also connects you to something greater than yourself. When the world quiets around you, the present moment becomes more vivid. You notice the rhythm of your breath, the warmth of sunlight, the subtle sounds that fill the space you're in. This awareness grounds you. It reminds you that strength is not always about action. Sometimes it's about alignment. In silence, you are no longer at war with life. You are part of it. The stillness teaches you that peace is not found in the absence of difficulty, but in the presence of understanding. Practicing chosen silence daily builds an unshakable core. Begin with short moments, pauses between conversations, breaks between tasks, quiet mornings before the day begins. Use these moments not to plan or analyze, but simply to be. The more you practice, the more you realize that silence is not a lack of sound, but a presence of awareness. It is a space where the mind reorganizes itself, where emotions lose their grip, and where insight begins to bloom. Silence is where your inner voice becomes clearer, stronger, and wiser. In silence, creativity also awakens. The mind that is constantly filled with noise cannot create. It repeats patterns, echoes what it hears, and loses originality. But when you are silent, new ideas begin to surface from within. You start hearing your authentic thoughts rather than borrowed ones. Great thinkers, writers, and leaders have always known the value of silence. It is in quiet moments that visions are born, solutions appear, and intuition speaks. Inner strength grows not just from restraint, but from the ability to listen deeply, to yourself and to life itself. Silence is a teacher of patience. It teaches that growth cannot be rushed, that wisdom cannot be forced. When you stop talking and start observing, you realize that everything unfolds at its own pace. Just as the seed grows underground before it breaks the surface, your strength builds quietly before it is seen. The world may not notice your silence, but it will feel your presence. The calm, grounded energy you cultivate through silence becomes your signature. It follows you into every room, every decision, every challenge. To grow through silence, you must also embrace solitude. Time alone is not loneliness, it is nourishment for the soul. Solitude gives you space to process emotions, to understand experiences, and to realign your priorities. When you spend time with yourself in silence, you stop seeking validation from outside sources. You begin to trust your own judgment, your own intuition. You no longer need to be understood by everyone, because you finally understand yourself. This self-assurance is the foundation of true inner strength. In moments of uncertainty or conflict, silence becomes your compass. When you don't know what to say or do, stay quiet and listen to your breath, to your thoughts, to your intuition. The answer often reveals itself in the stillness. Words spoken in haste rarely bring peace, but silence has a way of uncovering truth. The mind becomes more intelligent when it stops rushing to react. You begin to respond from wisdom rather than emotion, from clarity rather than confusion. Chosen silence also frees you from the weight of unnecessary battles. Not every situation deserves your energy. Some things resolve themselves when you stop feeding them attention. Silence can be the end of drama and the beginning of peace. It teaches that the need to always be right is a form of insecurity. True confidence allows you to remain silent even when provoked, because you know your worth is not determined by others' perceptions. Silence is self-trust made visible. The more you cultivate silence, the more resilient you become. When challenges arise, you no longer crumble under pressure because you've learned to find stillness within chaos. You've trained your mind to stay composed, your emotions to remain balanced, and your focus to stay clear. Strength built in silence does not depend on external validation. It exists quietly, like roots beneath the soil, unseen but unbreakable. Over time, you realize that chosen silence is not about isolation. It's about alignment. You speak less, but what you say carries more meaning. You act less impulsively, but your actions carry more impact. You stop wasting energy trying to control things beyond your influence. You become steady, deliberate, and wise. People may not always understand your silence, but they will feel its strength. The world will continue to test your composure, to tempt you into reaction, to challenge your peace. But those who have mastered silence stand unshaken. Their strength does not shout, it radiates. They listen before they decide, observe before they move, and think before they speak. In their quietness, there is power. In their restraint, there is depth. And in their silence, there is freedom. Inner strength is not built through noise, argument, or reaction. It is cultivated in the moments when you choose stillness over struggle, reflection over retaliation, peace over pride. Each time you choose silence intentionally, you grow stronger in ways words could never capture. It becomes your sanctuary, your armor, and your truth. Through chosen silence, you discover that power is not found in how loudly you speak, but in how deeply you understand. Number 4. React less, understand more, live free. Freedom begins where reaction ends. Life becomes lighter the moment you stop letting everything pull you in 10 different directions. Every time you react without thinking, you hand your peace over to circumstances you cannot control. But when you slow down enough to understand, you begin to move through life with a different kind of strength, one rooted in awareness, not emotion. Reacting is instinctive. Understanding is intentional. When you choose to understand rather than react, you begin to live in a way that feels grounded, deliberate, and free. Most people live in a constant state of reaction. They wake up, scroll through messages, read the news, hear someone's opinion, and immediately feel something: anger, frustration, worry, excitement. The day is a series of emotional responses to external triggers. The world pushes, and they push back. This endless cycle of reaction leaves them exhausted, anxious, and disconnected. The irony is that reacting feels like control, but it's actually the opposite. Reaction is the surrender of power. To react less is not indifference, it's mastery. It means you decide how to invest your emotional energy, instead of letting others spend it for you. Understanding begins with curiosity. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" ask, "What is this trying to teach me?" Every situation, pleasant or painful, carries a lesson beneath the surface. When you react, you miss that lesson. You see only the surface, the insult, the delay, the inconvenience. But when you pause and seek to understand, you discover meaning where there once was frustration. Understanding transforms obstacles into teachers and pain into growth. The ability to see beyond emotion is one of life's greatest freedoms, because it allows you to move through difficulties without being consumed by them. To understand more, you must learn to listen. Truly listen. Listening is not about waiting for your turn to speak. It is about seeking to see the world through another's eyes. When someone disagrees with you, reacts toward you, or behaves in a way that confuses you, step back and ask what they might be experiencing. People's actions often reveal their pain, not their truth. By choosing to understand instead of retaliate, you stop adding to the cycle of conflict and begin breaking it. You can disagree without being disagreeable. You can defend your boundaries without hostility. This balance is what emotional intelligence looks like in action. Living freely means you no longer carry the weight of constant reaction. Every time you take offense, argue for validation, or fight to prove yourself, you create emotional chains that keep you trapped in others' opinions. Freedom comes when you stop chasing approval and start seeking understanding. You realize that not everything requires a response, not everyone deserves your explanation, and not every situation needs your energy. You learn to walk away not because you're weak, but because peace is more valuable than control. Reacting less also sharpens your perception. The mind that reacts cannot see clearly. It's too clouded by emotion. When you slow down and observe instead of immediately responding, patterns begin to emerge. You start noticing what triggers you, what beliefs drive your reactions, and how often you mistake assumptions for facts. With understanding, life stops seeming like a series of random challenges and starts to look like a map of personal growth. You see how every experience fits into a larger picture of your evolution. The practice of reacting less starts with awareness. The next time something stirs you, a rude comment, a change in plans, a disappointment, Notice the impulse rising inside. Instead of obeying it, take a breath. Ask yourself, is my reaction helping or hurting me? This single question creates distance between emotion and action. You begin to realize that reacting often satisfies the ego but rarely serves the soul. Understanding, on the other hand, brings peace. It allows you to respond with intention, clarity, and compassion. Reacting less is also about emotional economy. Every reaction spends energy. Every argument drains focus. Every unnecessary conflict costs peace. When you start valuing your emotional energy, you stop wasting it on things that don't matter. You learn to respond only when response adds value. Silence becomes your filter. Perspective becomes your guide. You stop rushing to correct others or defend yourself against every misunderstanding. Instead, you conserve energy for growth, creativity, and purpose. That conservation becomes inner freedom. The more you understand, the less you judge. Judgment is often a form of unconscious reaction, an attempt to simplify what we don't yet understand. When you learn to see beyond appearances, your heart softens. You recognize that everyone is fighting unseen battles, carrying unseen burdens. This understanding doesn't excuse harmful behavior, but it gives you the wisdom to choose compassion over resentment. You stop reacting to people's surface behavior and start seeing the humanity beneath it. That perspective transforms not only your relationships but also your sense of peace. Freedom is found in detachment, not indifference. Detachment means you can experience life fully without being enslaved by every emotional wave. You can feel deeply without losing yourself in the feeling. Understanding allows you to stand in the middle of chaos and still see clearly. It doesn't mean you suppress emotion. It means you guide it. You direct its energy toward growth instead of destruction. This is where emotional maturity blossoms, not in the absence of feeling, but in the presence of wisdom. Reacting less also brings strength in moments of uncertainty. When things go wrong, people often panic, rush decisions, or blame others. The mind seeks quick answers to escape discomfort. But when you can sit calmly in confusion, you begin to see solutions that panic would have hidden. Understanding unfolds naturally when you give life permission to reveal itself. The ability to stay composed in uncertainty is one of the most powerful forms of freedom, because the unknown no longer scares you. To cultivate understanding, practice reflection. Spend time each day revisiting your reactions. Where did emotion override reason? What was the lesson hidden in that moment? Reflection turns emotional reactions into wisdom. You learn from experience instead of repeating it. Understanding becomes not just a concept but a way of living, an ongoing process of refinement and awareness. Each reflection deepens your connection to yourself and to life. Reacting less doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you start caring more intelligently. You stop pouring energy into arguments that go nowhere and start channeling it into actions that create peace. You stop internalizing every external storm and start focusing on your inner weather. Over time, you realize that calmness is not weakness but mastery in motion. When you react less, you protect your peace without needing walls. Your composure becomes your shield. Freedom expands as understanding deepens. You begin to see how much of life's suffering comes not from events themselves, but from the way we interpret them. The same situation can break one person and strengthen another. It all depends on perspective. When you seek to understand, you shift from victimhood to empowerment. You stop asking why me and start saying what now. That simple shift transforms frustration into fuel for growth. To live freely, you must release the illusion that control comes through reaction. True control is invisible. It's the quiet ability to stay steady while the world moves around you. It's knowing that you can't control people or events, only your perception of them. When you understand this fully, the grip of external validation loosens. You stop living for appearances and start living for peace. Life begins to feel lighter, because you are no longer carrying everyone else's noise inside your mind. There will always be moments that test your composure. The key is not to eliminate those moments, but to meet them differently. When anger rises, breathe. When someone misunderstands you, listen. When life disappoints you, learn. When things change unexpectedly, each time you choose understanding over reaction, you reinforce your freedom. You stop being a prisoner of circumstance and become a conscious participant in your own growth. React less, understand more, live free. It is not a slogan, it is a practice. It is the discipline of slowing down when your instincts scream to rush, of seeking meaning when your ego demands reaction, of letting go when control tempts you to hold tighter. Over time, this practice reshapes how you see everything. The world becomes less threatening, people become easier to forgive, and challenges become opportunities to grow. Freedom is not found in a world without problems. It is found in the ability to face those problems without losing your center. Understanding gives you that stability. It teaches you to walk through life with clarity, grace, and confidence. The less you react, the more you see. The more you understand, the freer you become. And in that freedom, you discover a truth few ever realize. Peace was never something to be found. It was something to be chosen, one mindful moment at a time. Number 5. Emotional mastery starts with conscious awareness. Awareness is the foundation of emotional mastery. Before you can control emotion, you must first learn to see it clearly. Awareness is like light. It reveals what was hidden. It shows the patterns that keep repeating, and it transforms confusion into understanding. Most people try to control emotions by suppressing them or pretending they don't exist. But suppression is not mastery. Control built on avoidance is fragile. It collapses the moment life becomes difficult. Real mastery begins when you develop the ability to observe what you feel without becoming consumed by it. Conscious awareness turns raw emotion into insight. It allows you to work with your feelings instead of being ruled by them. Every emotion carries information. Anger signals a boundary has been crossed. Fear warns of potential danger or uncertainty. Sadness reveals attachment and loss. Joy points to alignment with what matters most. But when awareness is absent, emotions become distorted. Anger turns to aggression, fear becomes paralysis, and sadness deepens into despair. Awareness is what gives emotion direction. It channels energy into clarity rather than chaos. When you are conscious of what you feel, you can trace emotion back to its source, understand its purpose, and respond in a way that serves your growth rather than your pain. Becoming aware starts with paying attention to your inner world. Throughout the day, emotions rise and fall like waves, but most people are too distracted to notice until the wave crashes. The practice of awareness means slowing down enough to catch the emotion as it begins, to feel the first hint of tension, the first spark of irritation, the first pull of anxiety. When you notice these sensations early, you give yourself the opportunity to work with them before they take over. Awareness gives you time to choose. Without awareness, there is only reaction. With it, there is choice. Conscious awareness is not about analyzing every feeling endlessly. It's about observing without judgment. The moment you label an emotion as good or bad, you stop seeing it clearly. You begin to resist what you don't like and cling to what you do, and that resistance creates imbalance. Awareness requires neutrality. It's the ability to say, this is anger or this is fear, without adding a story. The emotion itself is not the problem. The story you attach to it is. When you stay neutral, emotions move through you instead of getting stuck within you. Developing awareness also means recognizing the connection between thoughts and emotions. Emotions do not appear out of nowhere. They are the body's reaction to what the mind believes. A single thought can trigger an entire chain of feelings. When you become aware of your thoughts, you begin to see how belief shapes emotion. If you believe someone disrespected you, anger follows. If you believe you are in danger, fear appears. If you believe life is unfair, sadness grows. By questioning your thoughts, you weaken the emotional grip they have on you. Awareness gives you the power to separate perception from reality. One of the most effective ways to cultivate awareness is through stillness. When the mind is constantly occupied, it has no space to observe itself. But in moments of silence, when you stop talking, stop scrolling, stop planning, you begin to notice what's really happening inside. You may feel restless or uncomfortable at first, but that discomfort is the doorway to awareness. The emotions you've been avoiding rise to the surface, and instead of running from them, you finally have the chance to understand them. Stillness allows the truth to emerge from beneath the noise. Awareness is also about recognizing emotional triggers. These are the moments when your reactions feel automatic, when certain people, words, or situations stir strong feelings within you. Triggers reveal unhealed parts of yourself. Instead of resenting them, use them as guides. Ask, what is this moment trying to show me about myself? Maybe it points to old wounds, unmet needs, or beliefs you've outgrown. Each trigger is an opportunity to practice awareness and turn pain into understanding. Emotional mastery is not about avoiding triggers. It's about transforming them into teachers. In the process of awareness, you will begin to see that emotion itself is neutral. It is energy moving through the body. What gives it power to control you is your identification with it. When you say, I am angry, you merge with the feeling. When you say, I feel anger, you create separation. That small shift in language reflects a major shift in consciousness. You are not your emotions. You are the awareness observing them. This realization frees you from the illusion that emotions define who you are. They are temporary visitors, not permanent residents. To strengthen conscious awareness, practice mindfulness throughout the day. When you eat, actually taste your food. When you walk, feel your steps. When you speak, notice the tone of your voice. Awareness is built in small moments of attention. The more present you become in ordinary situations, the easier it becomes to remain conscious in emotional ones. You train the mind to stay awake even when emotion tries to pull you into reaction. Awareness turns presence into power. Journaling is another powerful tool for awareness. Writing down what you feel externalizes emotion and reveals hidden patterns. Over time, you'll begin to notice recurring themes, perhaps impatience in stressful situations, or self-doubt after failure, or resentment when boundaries are tested. These patterns are not random. They point to areas where growth is needed. The act of writing transforms emotion into reflection, and reflection transforms reaction into wisdom. Awareness expands every time you put words to what once felt indescribable. In relationships, conscious awareness allows you to respond with empathy instead of defensiveness. When you're aware of your own emotional state, you no longer project it onto others. You recognize when you're reacting from pain, rather than truth. This self-knowledge creates space for understanding. Instead of escalating conflict, you bring calm into the interaction. Awareness gives you control over your energy, and that energy shapes how others experience you. People feel safer around those who are emotionally aware, because awareness radiates steadiness. As awareness deepens, emotional mastery becomes natural. You no longer need to force control or pretend calmness. Awareness itself becomes your anchor. When anger arises, you see it before it explodes. When sadness visits, you hold it gently instead of drowning in it. When fear appears, you question its message instead of believing its story. This is mastery, not through denial, but through understanding. The more aware you are, the less control emotion has over you, and the more freedom you feel within yourself. Awareness also teaches compassion. When you understand your own emotions, you begin to understand others as well. You realize that everyone acts from their own level of awareness. People who lash out are usually reacting from pain they don't understand. People who manipulate or withdraw are often trapped in fear. When you see this, judgment softens. Compassion replaces anger, and peace replaces conflict. Awareness expands your heart as much as your mind. There will be times when awareness feels heavy, when seeing yourself clearly reveals uncomfortable truths. You may notice patterns of blame, insecurity, or avoidance that you once ignored. But this discomfort is growth in disguise. Awareness doesn't always feel good, but it always leads to freedom. It allows you to take responsibility for your emotions without guilt. You realize that awareness is not about perfection, it's about honesty. The more honest you become with yourself, the stronger you become emotionally. Emotional mastery, through awareness, also brings stability in uncertainty. When life shifts suddenly, awareness keeps you from being swept away by fear. You observe your feelings instead of resisting them. You adapt instead of panic. Awareness helps you see that every experience, pleasant or painful, is temporary. This understanding makes you resilient. You no longer fear emotion. You embrace it as part of being human. Awareness gives you the strength to stay steady in the face of change. Ultimately, emotional mastery is not about eliminating emotion. It's about elevating consciousness. When awareness becomes your default state, emotions serve their purpose and move on. You experience life fully without being enslaved by feeling. Awareness turns turmoil into insight, confusion into clarity, reaction into response. It creates a sense of inner spaciousness where peace naturally resides. Every moment of awareness is a step toward freedom. Every time you observe rather than react, you strengthen the bridge between emotion and wisdom. The more conscious you become, the less you suffer needlessly. Awareness doesn't remove the challenges of life. It changes how you experience them. It gives you the power to stay centered when the world pulls at your edges. Emotional mastery is not a destination. It is the continual act of waking up to yourself again and again until awareness becomes who you are. Number 6. Control feelings before they control you. Emotions are powerful forces. They can lift you to moments of joy or drag you into the depths of regret. It can inspire greatness or fuel destruction. The difference lies in whether you control your feelings or allow them to control you. Mastery over emotion does not mean suppressing what you feel. It means guiding that energy with awareness and intention. When feelings lead without discipline, they distort perception and every decision becomes impulsive. But when the mind leads with clarity, emotion becomes an ally instead of a master. Every feeling begins as energy, a spark in the body that arises from thought, memory, or instinct. The instant it appears, the mind has a choice to observe or to obey. Most people obey without realizing it. A moment of irritation turns into anger. A brief worry spirals into panic. A small disappointment becomes despair. The emotion grows because it is fed by attention and reaction. To control feelings, you must interrupt this automatic loop. The moment you notice emotion building, pause and recognize it for what it is, energy asking for direction. That single pause can change the outcome of an entire situation. Control begins with awareness of triggers. Everyone has emotional weak points. Certain tones of voice, specific criticisms, familiar rejections that ignite feelings instantly. These triggers are not random. They are reflections of past wounds and unresolved experiences. When a trigger appears, the body reacts before reason has a chance to speak. Your pulse quickens, your chest tightens, your mind races. In those moments, control is not about fighting the feeling, but about grounding yourself before it consumes you. Take a breath, feel your body, and observe the emotion without judgment. Recognize that it is temporary and that you are not obligated to act on it. When emotion is strong, it distorts judgment. Decisions made in the heat of feeling are rarely wise. Anger speaks in absolutes. Fear imagines worst outcomes, and sadness clouds perception. Emotional control means delaying action until your state stabilizes. This delay is not weakness. It is strength in its highest form. The ability to wait until emotion subsides before choosing your response is a mark of maturity and discipline. People who control their feelings understand that time is an ally. The space between feeling and action is where wisdom lives. The body plays a major role in emotional control. When feelings rise, the nervous system reacts first. The breath shortens, muscles tense, and heart rate accelerates. These signals feed back into the mind, amplifying emotion. To break this cycle, use the body to calm the mind. Deep breathing, steady posture, and controlled movement all communicate safety to the nervous system. When the body feels calm, the mind follows. Control does not begin in the head. It begins with how you treat the body that carries you through each emotional wave. Controlling feelings is not about becoming numb. It's about channeling emotion into purpose. Anger, when mastered, becomes determination. Fear, when understood, becomes caution. Sadness, when accepted, becomes depth. Each feeling carries potential energy. When you learn to direct it consciously, emotion becomes a source of power rather than pain. To do this, train yourself to ask the right questions in the heat of emotion. What is this feeling trying to show me? What action will actually help? If I act on this now, will I regret it later? These questions bring logic back into the conversation, and give you a moment to step out of emotional autopilot. There is also power in reframing perception. Much of emotional chaos comes not from what happens, but from how it is interpreted. Two people can face the same challenge, yet one reacts with panic, while the other remains composed. The difference is perspective. When you view problems as attacks, emotion spikes. When you view them as opportunities for growth, emotion stabilizes. To control feelings, practice shifting perspective. Replace "why is this happening to me" with "what is this trying to teach me?" This subtle shift transforms emotional energy into insight. Self-control is strengthened through daily practice, not in moments of crisis alone. Build discipline in small ways. Wake up when you say you will. Complete tasks without delay. Resist the pull of distraction. These small acts of self-governance train the same mental muscles required for emotional control. When you discipline your habits, you also discipline your reactions. Emotional mastery is not separate from daily discipline. They are the same art expressed in different forms. Awareness of environment also matters. Certain spaces, people, and routines either support or sabotage control. Chaotic environments fuel reactive minds. If you surround yourself with noise, negativity, or emotional instability, staying calm becomes harder. Creating order around you creates order within you. Maintain physical spaces that reflect clarity, clean, minimal, peaceful. Spend time with people who value composure rather than drama. The more stability you cultivate externally, the easier it becomes to maintain balance internally. Another key to emotional control is learning to detach identity from feeling. Many people unconsciously define themselves by their emotional states. I'm an anxious person. I'm always angry. I'm too sensitive. These labels reinforce the emotions and make them habitual. When you identify with emotion, you give it permission to stay. Instead, view emotion as a temporary visitor. You experience anger, but you are not anger. You feel fear, but you are not fear. This separation allows you to control emotion without suppressing it. You remain the observer, not the prisoner. In relationships, emotional control preserves respect and connection. Words spoken in anger can wound deeply, often beyond repair. When you control your feelings, you prevent temporary emotions from causing permanent damage. Instead of reacting instantly, choose to understand, listen before responding. Control transforms conflict into communication. It teaches others through example that strength is not in domination but in restraint. A person who controls their emotions commands trust because others know they will not lose themselves to impulse. To master feelings before they master you. Develop inner dialogue that supports control. The mind often fuels emotion with catastrophic thinking or self-criticism. Replace those internal reactions with grounded statements. This feeling will pass. I can handle this. I choose how I respond. These affirmations are not empty, they are mental anchors that stabilize emotion. Over time, the brain learns to associate calm thinking with safety. Control becomes automatic because calm becomes familiar. One of the most transformative practices for emotional control is reflection after reaction. When you lose control, instead of feeling shame, study the moment. Ask yourself what triggered you, how you felt physically, what thoughts appeared, and how you could have responded differently. This process converts failure into wisdom. The more you analyze emotional moments with honesty, the more equipped you become to handle them in the future. Growth requires awareness, not punishment. It is also crucial to acknowledge that some emotions run deep, rooted in old pain or trauma. In these cases, control does not mean denial. It means gradual healing. You cannot master what you refuse to face. Emotional control involves courage to look inward, to confront what has been buried. When you give old emotions space to be understood, they lose their power to dominate the present. Healing and control are two sides of the same coin. One cannot exist without the other. There will be times when emotion feels overwhelming, and control seems out of reach. In those moments, return to simplicity. Breathe deeply, slow down, and remind yourself that feelings are temporary visitors. The storm may be loud, but it cannot last forever. Every emotion, no matter how intense, has a beginning, a peak, and an end. Knowing this truth gives you patience. Instead of fighting the storm, You endure it with quiet strength, knowing calm always follows. The real art of control lies not in resisting emotion but in transforming it. Energy that once fueled anger can drive change. Energy that once sustained fear can deepen wisdom. When you harness emotion, you access the full spectrum of human power without becoming a slave to any part of it. Control is not the absence of feeling, it is the skill of direction. The one who controls emotion controls action, and the one who controls action controls destiny. Emotional control is the quiet power that separates reaction from intention, chaos from clarity, suffering from strength. To control feelings before they control you is to take command of your inner world. To stop being tossed by the storms of impulse and instead steer your ship with purpose. Each moment of control reinforces confidence. Each act of restraint builds resilience. The goal is not to be emotionless, but to be emotionally free, to feel deeply without losing direction, to experience life fully without surrendering to its waves. When you can hold emotion in your hands without being burned by it, you have found true mastery. Number 7. Silence transforms chaos into inner clarity. Silence is not the absence of sound. It is the presence of understanding. Beneath the noise of thoughts, emotions, and external distractions lies a stillness that holds extraordinary wisdom. In that quiet space, the mind no longer rushes to fix, defend, or control. It simply sees. Silence reveals what constant activity hides. It transforms confusion into insight and turns emotional storms into calm seas. When you embrace silence, you stop fighting chaos and begin to witness it with clarity. The world may continue to spin around you, but within you become steady and unmoved. In modern life, silence has become rare. The constant hum of notifications, conversations, and obligations leaves little room for stillness. People fill every empty moment with noise because silence feels uncomfortable. When the world grows quiet, the mind begins to speak. And what it says is not always easy to hear. Yet that is precisely why silence is powerful. It exposes what has been ignored. It brings hidden fears, unresolved emotions, and neglected dreams to the surface. Facing these truths may be uncomfortable, but without silence, transformation never begins. Chaos thrives in a distracted mind. When thoughts race unchecked, emotions follow, creating tension and confusion. Silence slows this process. It interrupts the momentum of overthinking and allows the mind to reset. In silence, ideas and emotions stop colliding and begin to align. The mind regains order, and understanding emerges naturally. What once felt overwhelming becomes manageable because silence strips away exaggeration. It shows reality as it is, not as fear imagines it. Inner clarity is not something you chase. It arises when you stop resisting. Silence creates the space where understanding can unfold. Think of a muddy river. When stirred, the water is cloudy, but when left still, the sediment settles and the water clears. The same happens within the human mind. Constant activity keeps everything in motion, blurring perception. Stillness allows the mind's natural clarity to return. Silence doesn't solve problems. It reveals the answers that constant noise drowns out. Silence also strengthens emotional stability. When faced with conflict or stress, the instinct is to react, to speak, argue, or defend. But silence gives you the ability to observe instead. In that quiet observation, you see not just what others are doing, but what you are feeling. You begin to understand the motives behind your reactions. The space created by silence allows emotion to cool before it hardens into words or actions. This pause prevents regret and preserves dignity. It turns emotional chaos into measured strength. Practicing silence does not mean isolating yourself from life. It means cultivating inner quiet even amid movement and noise. You can practice silence while walking, driving, or sitting in a crowded place. The goal is not external quiet, but internal stillness. It's a shift from reacting to observing, from clinging to letting be. When you develop this kind of silence, outer chaos loses its grip. You stop being tossed by every disturbance because your anchor lies within. The discipline of silence also refines perception. When you stop speaking, you start listening, truly listening. You hear the tone behind words, the emotion behind silence itself. You notice the subtleties that constant talking masks. Silence sharpens intuition, allowing you to sense truth beyond appearances. It makes you more discerning, both in understanding others and yourself. Words can deceive, but silence never lies. It reflects what it is. There is a difference between forced silence and chosen silence. Forced silence is suppression, holding back words out of fear or insecurity. Chosen silence is mastery, refraining from speech because wisdom recognizes that not everything needs to be said. When you choose silence, you act from strength, not avoidance. You communicate more through presence than through noise. People who have mastered silence radiate calm. Their stillness commands attention because it carries the weight of awareness. In relationships, silence has the power to heal what words cannot. Arguments often escalate because both sides compete to be heard, not to understand. When one person introduces silence into that storm by pausing, breathing, or simply refusing to fuel hostility, the energy changes. Silence disarms defensiveness. It invites reflection. It creates a doorway through which understanding can enter. Sometimes the most loving act is to remain silent until the heart regains clarity. Silence also reconnects you to intuition, the quiet voice beneath the noise of logic and fear. The intuitive mind whispers, never shouts. To hear it, you must turn down the volume of distractions. Many people miss life's deeper guidance because they cannot stop talking or thinking long enough to listen. But when you sit in silence long enough, intuition speaks with precision. It offers insights that feel effortless yet profoundly true. Decisions made from this quiet knowing often prove wiser than those made through overanalysis. The practice of silence requires patience. At first, it may feel empty or restless. The mind, unaccustomed to stillness, resists it. Thoughts flood in, emotions rise, and silence feels impossible. But this is part of the process. You are witnessing the mind's chaos for the first time. Without distraction. Stay with it. Beneath the restlessness lies peace. Over time, silence becomes natural, even nourishing. It becomes the space you return to for renewal and strength. Silence also nurtures creativity. When the mind is quiet, imagination awakens. Many of history's greatest insights, inventions, and works of art were born in silence. Creativity requires space to breathe, and silence provides that space. In stillness, disconnected ideas merge into clarity, and inspiration emerges without force. The more comfortable you become with silence, the more open you become to the flow of creation. One of the greatest lessons silence teaches is humility. It reminds you that not everything requires your interference or opinion. It shows that truth does not need constant defense, and that peace does not need to be announced. When you stop trying to prove, persuade, or control, you discover that much of life unfolds perfectly without your noise. This humility creates peace within and harmony without. It allows you to move through life with quiet confidence instead of anxious control. In moments of chaos, silence becomes a refuge. When life feels heavy and uncertain, silence offers stability. It grounds you in the present, where problems shrink and clarity returns. Even a few minutes of stillness can shift your entire state of being. Sit quietly, breathe deeply, and notice what remains when thought subsides. That remaining awareness, the calm observer, is who you truly are. In silence, you remember your essence beyond roles, worries, and stories. As silence deepens, it changes your relationship with the external world. You no longer react to every disturbance because your peace no longer depends on circumstances. The noise of others ceases to disturb you because you understand it as their chaos, not yours. This detachment is not indifference. It is maturity. You respond when needed but are no longer consumed by everything that happens. Silence gives you the ability to remain inwardly calm while outwardly active. In silence, forgiveness becomes easier. Many grudges persist because noise keeps pain alive, replaying memories, rehashing words, reigniting resentment. When you enter silence, those loops dissolve. You begin to see the situation without emotions' distortion. You understand not just what happened, but why. From that understanding, compassion arises naturally. You let go not out of weakness but because peace matters more than pride. Silence turns bitterness into understanding and closure into freedom. The power of silence extends beyond personal peace. It influences the world around you. When you embody calm, others sense it. Your presence becomes grounding. You inspire without speaking. This is the quiet authority of those who have found inner clarity. They don't demand respect. Their silence earns it. They don't chase control, their calm exerts it. Such people change environments simply by being in them. True silence is not empty. It is full of presence. It is awareness without interference, seeing without judging, being without striving. In this silence, the mind and heart align. You no longer seek clarity, you become it. The chaos that once defined your inner world fades into order. Life still presents challenges, but you face them from a center that cannot be shaken. You move through the world with grace, because silence has taught you that clarity is not found in answers, but in presence. When you cultivate silence as a way of living, you stop looking for peace outside yourself. You realize that chaos can exist around you, but it does not have to live within you. The noise of the world loses its power. When you master the art of quiet, silence becomes your refuge, your teacher, your strength. From that stillness, you see clearly, act wisely, and live freely. Number 8. Stay grounded when emotions demand chaos. There are moments when emotions rise like storms, fierce and unpredictable, threatening to pull you into their center. Anger demands that you explode. Fear insists that you run. Sadness whispers that you withdraw. And anxiety screams for control. In these moments, chaos feels like the only option, but true strength lies in doing the opposite. Remaining grounded while emotions try to uproot you. To stay grounded when emotions demand chaos is to protect your balance when everything inside wants to break. It is the act of standing firm in truth while feelings surge and fade around you like waves that can never drown what stands anchored in depth. Grounding begins with awareness of the body. When emotions run high, the mind races and the body tightens. The heartbeat quickens, breathing shortens, and muscles brace as if preparing for battle. This physiological reaction fuels emotional intensity, making chaos feel inevitable. The first step to regaining control is to bring attention back to the body. Feel your feet pressing into the ground, your breath moving in and out of your chest, your shoulders loosening as you exhale. The body is the bridge back to stability. The moment you reconnect with it, the emotional current weakens its pull. You remember that while emotions happen within you, they are not the entirety of you. Staying grounded also means staying present. Emotions often draw power from stories, thoughts about the past, or fears about the future. Anger feeds on what someone did. Anxiety feeds on what might happen. The mind spirals between what was and what could be. But grounding pulls it back to what is. Presence is not an escape. It's an anchor. It brings attention to this breath, this step, this moment. When you are fully here, emotion loses the strength that comes from imagined scenarios. Chaos feeds on imagination. Presence starves it. Grounding requires you to slow down when everything inside wants to accelerate. Emotional chaos thrives on speed, the quick reaction, the impulsive word, the rash decision. To stay grounded, you must move deliberately, speak consciously, and act only after clarity returns. Slowing down does not mean weakness, it means control. The one who can remain still while emotion demands movement holds real power. Slowing down creates the space between feeling and action, where wisdom can intervene. Another key to grounding is maintaining perspective. When emotion takes over, it convinces you that the moment is everything. That one mistake, one comment, or one outcome defines your entire life. But perspective reminds you of proportion. What feels unbearable now will pass. What seems catastrophic today will shrink in time. Perspective transforms chaos into something you can manage. It reminds you that emotion is temporary, but the damage from reacting impulsively can last far longer. Grounding is the ability to zoom out when emotion narrows your view. The environment around you also affects how grounded you feel. Physical surroundings can either calm or amplify chaos. When you feel overwhelmed, Simplify your space. Sit in quiet. Step outside. Touch something natural. The earth, a tree, a wall, your own heartbeat. Physical contact with stability sends a message to your mind. You are safe. You are here. You are steady. Grounding is not an abstract idea. It is something you can feel in your body and environment. The world may not slow down, but you can. Grounded people understand that emotions are waves meant to be ridden, not controlled by force. The wave rises, peaks, and falls. If you resist it, you get tossed. If you chase it, you exhaust yourself. But if you stay balanced and patient, the wave passes, and you remain standing. Staying grounded is not about suppressing feelings. It's about letting them move without letting them dictate. You watch the wave instead of becoming it. This is emotional maturity in its highest form. The ability to feel deeply without losing composure. Breathwork is one of the simplest and most powerful grounding tools. When emotion demands chaos, breath restores order. Deep, rhythmic breathing signals to the body that danger has passed. It shifts the nervous system from reaction to recovery. Breathing through emotion is not avoidance. It is the act of creating stability within turbulence. Every deep breath reminds you that you are in control of what happens inside you, even when you can't control what happens outside. Staying grounded also means remaining anchored to values when emotions try to distort them. Chaos tempts you to abandon your principles for momentary relief or revenge. Anger says, say it, even if you regret it. Fear says, run, even if it costs your integrity. But when you are grounded in who you are, emotion cannot sway you from what you stand for. Your principles act as the roots that keep you steady when storms arrive. A person who knows their values does not lose direction when emotion tries to drag them elsewhere. Grounding is reinforced through self-talk. When emotions rise, the mind often echoes their tone. Angry thoughts feed anger. Fearful thoughts feed fear. To stay grounded, speak to yourself with steadiness. Replace emotional exaggeration with calm truth. Instead of "I can't handle this," remind yourself, "I've handled hard things before." Instead of "this is a disaster," tell yourself, "this is a challenge I can navigate." Grounding through language helps regulate the emotional climate within you. Words can either fuel chaos or anchor peace. The choice is always yours. Connection to nature strengthens grounding because nature operates in calm cycles rather than emotional extremes. The earth does not rush or overreact. It endures. Spending time in natural environments, walking barefoot, sitting by water, breathing fresh air, reminds your nervous system of its natural rhythm. It helps you realign with the simplicity of existence. Nature has no interest in chaos. It simply grounding in nature teaches you the same lesson. Peace is not found by escaping emotion, but by returning to the stability that already exists beneath it. Staying grounded also involves acceptance. Fighting emotion only strengthens it. The more you resist anger, the angrier you feel. The more you reject fear, the stronger it grows. Acceptance does not mean surrendering to chaos. It means acknowledging what is without letting it rule. When you accept emotion, you create room for it to move through you. Resistance traps it. Acceptance releases it. Grounding requires this kind of surrender. Not to emotion, but to the process of experiencing it without losing balance. Relationships often test your grounding more than anything else. When others act unfairly, speak harshly, or provoke you, the emotional pull to react is strong. But staying grounded means refusing to be drawn into their storm. You recognize that their chaos does not have to become yours. You hold your center while they lose theirs. This strength is quiet, but it's powerful. It allows you to respond with calm instead of retaliation, with composure instead of collapse. People may not understand your stillness at first, but in time, they will respect it. Grounding also means trusting time. Emotion demands urgency. It insists that you must fix, confront, or decide right now. But grounded people know that time reveals what emotion conceals. What feels unbearable now often looks different after rest or reflection. Time clarifies, softens, and restores balance. Trusting time allows you to act when emotion has cooled and reason has returned. Patience is one of the purest forms of strength. The more you practice grounding, the more it becomes your default state. You begin to recognize emotion as movement, not identity. You stop fearing it because you know how to return to stability. Over time, even in chaos, there remains a quiet center within you, untouched by turbulence. That center becomes your true home. It's the part of you that no argument, no failure, no heartbreak can destroy. To stay grounded when emotions demand chaos is to live with mastery over your inner world. It is to refuse to be swept away by temporary storms. It is to stand rooted in awareness while emotion passes like weather across the sky. Chaos may visit, but it cannot stay where grounding lives. The one who remains centered in the face of turmoil carries an unshakable power, calm that cannot be broken, peace that cannot be taken, and strength that does not need to prove itself. Number 9. Mindful detachment breeds emotional self-mastery. Mindful detachment is not about becoming cold or indifferent. It is about developing the ability to witness emotions without being consumed by them. It is the art of observing the rise and fall of feelings as if watching waves approach and retreat on the shore. This practice allows you to experience the full spectrum of emotion while remaining centered and in control. Emotional self-mastery is not achieved by eliminating feeling, but by learning how to engage with it consciously. Mindful detachment gives you the space to choose your response rather than be driven by the intensity of the moment. It allows you to live with depth, compassion, and wisdom while remaining free from emotional captivity. When you practice mindful detachment, you create a small but powerful gap between stimulus and reaction. In that gap lies clarity. Instead of being pulled by emotional urgency, you pause long enough to understand what's really happening within you. Someone may criticize you, and the first wave of irritation rises. Instead of replying impulsively, you notice the feeling, acknowledge its presence, and breathe into it. This pause interrupts the automatic chain reaction that leads to regretful behavior. Through that awareness, emotion becomes a messenger, not a master. You learn what the feeling wants to show you: hurt, insecurity, expectation, but you no longer let it dictate your behavior. Mindful detachment is rooted in presence. It demands that you step out of mental noise and return to the immediacy of now. When you detach mindfully, you stop replaying past wounds or predicting future outcomes. You attend to the current emotion as it is, not as your story paints it. The past can fuel resentment, and the future can spark anxiety, but the present offers balance. Awareness lives only in the present moment, and from that place, emotions lose much of their destructive energy. Practicing detachment requires deep honesty with yourself. It means admitting that emotions are often amplified by your interpretations rather than by reality itself. What someone says might not be inherently offensive, but your perception of it triggers defensiveness. When you recognize that much of your emotional suffering comes from internal narratives rather than external events, you gain tremendous freedom. Detachment helps you separate what happened from what you think about what happened. In that distinction lies emotional liberation. Self-observation is central to this practice. To detach mindfully, you must become the observer of your internal world. Watch how emotions arise, how thoughts reinforce them, and how the body reacts. When anger comes, notice the tension in your jaw or the heat in your chest. When sadness appears, feel its weight in your shoulders or its pull in your stomach. This awareness turns emotion from something that controls you into something you study. Observation dissolves identification. The moment you observe an emotion, you are no longer lost within it. You are awake to it. Detachment is not suppression. Suppression denies emotion, pushes it away, and buries it deep, where it festers. Detachment, on the other hand, allows emotion to exist without giving it authority. You don't run from it, you simply refuse to serve it. This distinction is critical. Suppression hardens the heart, while detachment refines it. When you suppress emotion, it owns you from the shadows. When you detach mindfully, you bring it into the light where it can be understood and released. Mindful detachment strengthens empathy. When you are not enslaved by your own emotions, you can listen to others without judgment or defensiveness. You can hear their pain without taking it personally, and you can offer compassion without losing your balance. Detached compassion is the highest form of kindness. It gives fully but does not drain the giver. It allows you to care deeply while remaining emotionally stable. When you detach from the need to fix or control, you connect from a place of clarity rather than fear. Detachment also teaches resilience. When you are deeply attached to outcomes, every disappointment feels like destruction. But when you practice detachment, you begin to accept that not everything will unfold according to your expectations. And that's okay. Life is unpredictable, people change, and circumstances evolve. Detachment doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop clinging. You still set goals, but you release the need to control how and when they manifest. You still love, but you allow others to be who they are instead of who you want them to be. Detachment transforms suffering into growth because it teaches you to flow with life rather than fight against it. The practice of mindful detachment also extends to thoughts. The mind generates a constant stream of commentary, judgments, fears, desires, assumptions. When you identify with these thoughts, you become trapped in their rhythm. But if you learn to watch them without involvement, their power fades. Notice a thought like, I'm not good enough, and instead of wrestling with it, simply acknowledge, a thought has arisen. This simple act of witnessing disarms the emotion tied to it. Over time, you begin to see thoughts as passing clouds in the sky of consciousness. You realize that what you are is the vast sky, not the clouds. Mindful detachment also helps you manage conflict. When you detach from the need to win an argument or prove a point, you focus instead on understanding. You can listen without preparing your rebuttal and speak without aggression. This doesn't mean you allow others to disrespect you. It means you choose peace over pride. Detachment replaces reaction with intention. It allows you to stand firm without hostility, to assert yourself without aggression, and to disengage from situations that serve no growth. Another aspect of detachment is learning not to take things personally. People act from their own conditioning, wounds, and perceptions. Their words and actions are often reflections of their inner state, rather than a true evaluation of your worth. When you internalize this truth, emotional freedom blossoms. You no longer tie your peace to others' approval or behavior. You begin to understand that their storms do not have to become your weather. Detachment is an act of humility. It acknowledges that you do not control everything, nor should you. The universe unfolds according to laws beyond personal preference. Trying to force every event into alignment with your desires only breeds frustration. When you detach, you allow life to flow naturally. You focus on your response rather than external control. This surrender is not weakness. It is wisdom. It shows that you trust life's intelligence more than your emotional impulses. Mindful detachment also enhances self-discipline. When you can step back from emotion, you can make choices aligned with your higher goals rather than temporary urges. You begin to act based on values instead of moods. This is the foundation of mastery, to act intentionally, not impulsively. Every time you choose awareness over reaction, you strengthen the muscle of self-control. Over time, this becomes second nature, and emotional chaos loses its grip on you. Practicing detachment in everyday life requires patience. You may notice yourself slipping into reaction, but awareness will catch it sooner each time. At first, detachment feels unnatural because society often equates emotion with passion or care. But as you experience its benefits, inner peace, clarity, balance, you begin to see that detachment is not the absence of love. It is the purification of it. It allows love to exist without fear, kindness without expectation, and strength without aggression. There will be moments when detachment feels difficult, when emotion surges so strongly that observation seems impossible. In those moments, pause, breathe, remember that you are the observer, not the storm. Even the most turbulent feelings pass when met with awareness. Detachment does not mean indifference. It means endurance through understanding. You can acknowledge emotion, respect it, and still rise above it. Emotional self-mastery through mindful detachment is the quiet power that defines true strength. It is the ability to hold peace amid provocation, to act from clarity rather than compulsion, and to remain steady when the world wavers. It transforms emotional reactions into conscious responses and turns inner conflict into understanding. When you live with mindful detachment, you become free, Not because emotions disappear, but because they no longer define you. You feel deeply, you love freely, and you move through life with serenity that cannot be taken away. Number 10. Choose peace over impulse every time. There is a split second in every situation when impulse and peace meet face to face. One urges you to react, to release the tension immediately, to prove a point, to demand control. The other whispers softly, asking you to wait, to breathe, to trust that calm will protect what anger would destroy. That moment defines the quality of your life. Choosing peace over impulse every time is the path to lasting strength. The kind of strength that doesn't shout or fight but steadies itself in quiet wisdom. Impulse is the language of emotion unchecked, while peace is the voice of mastery earned through discipline. Impulse tempts you with immediacy. It tells you that relief comes through action, that reacting now will ease the discomfort. But impulse never considers consequences. It wants to win the moment, not the war. When you act on impulse, you hand over your power to emotion. You let the temporary dictate the permanent. Peace, on the other hand, is patient. It sees beyond the heat of now. It understands that silence today may protect something precious tomorrow. Peace may seem passive, but it is active control. An act of courage that resists the pull of instant gratification in favor of lasting clarity. Choosing peace begins with awareness of triggers. Everyone has moments that test composure, harsh words, unfair criticism, disrespect, disappointment. These moments ignite emotion because they touch deep needs. The need to be understood, valued, or respected. Impulse arises to defend those needs. But peace recognizes that reaction rarely fulfills them. When you identify what triggers your impulse, you begin to loosen its hold. You can anticipate the emotional wave and prepare to meet it with balance. Awareness turns emotional ambush into emotional management. Peace is not denial. It is conscious restraint. It doesn't mean you stop caring or pretending that nothing affects you. It means you choose not to surrender your power to emotion. You acknowledge what you feel but decide not to act from it until clarity returns. It is the maturity to say, I see what's happening inside me, but I will not let it decide for me. That sentence is the essence of emotional mastery. It's not about ignoring emotion. It's about placing wisdom at the helm. Impulse thrives in noise. Peace grows in stillness. When emotions rise, the mind becomes loud. Thoughts race. The body tightens. And the need to act feels unbearable. The simplest way to access peace is to pause. A single breath creates distance between you and the emotion. In that breath, logic re-enters, the nervous system calms, and the mind clears. This pause doesn't just prevent mistakes, it preserves relationships, reputations, and self-respect. In the space between impulse and peace, your true power emerges. Peace is a long-term investment. It doesn't give you the satisfaction of immediate release, but it rewards you with lasting freedom. When you choose peace, you protect your energy from being wasted on battles that don't matter. You keep your dignity intact when others lose theirs. You sleep well knowing you didn't let anger write your words or pride dictate your behavior. Peace builds a kind of strength that others can feel in your presence, a quiet authority that doesn't need to prove anything. Impulse often disguises itself as passion or justice. It tells you that reacting fiercely shows strength. But peace knows that real strength needs no display. It's easy to lash out, but it takes immense courage to hold steady. Anyone can react. Few can remain composed. Those who master that art become unshakable. When you choose peace, you no longer let others control your emotional weather. You decide when the storm ends, not the situation or the person before you. That is real power, the power of sovereignty over self. Peace doesn't mean you never act. It means you act deliberately, not impulsively. It allows you to respond with purpose instead of emotion. When you choose peace, your actions are guided by understanding rather than revenge, by perspective rather than pride. You learn that timing is as important as action. Sometimes the strongest move is to wait until emotion cools and truth becomes clear. From that calm place, your words carry weight, and your choices bring progress rather than regret. The challenge is that impulse feels natural. It's wired into survival instincts. Fight, flee, or freeze. Peace feels unnatural at first because it goes against the body's default reactions. But peace is not the absence of instinct. It is the evolution of it. It's the mind rising above the body's automatic responses to choose something higher. Each time you resist impulse, you train your nervous system to find safety in stillness instead of reaction. Over time, peace becomes your new default. Choosing peace requires humility. Impulse feeds on ego, the need to be right, to defend, to control. Peace has no need for validation. It knows that the truth stands without shouting. It doesn't seek to win arguments. It seeks to win understanding. When you release the need to dominate, you discover the freedom to simply be. Peace doesn't shrink you. It refines you. It makes you powerful without aggression and firm without cruelty. In relationships, choosing peace over impulse saves connections that anger might destroy. Words spoken in reaction can never be unsaid. Anger's release may feel satisfying in the moment, but often leaves guilt in its wake. Peace gives space for empathy to return. It allows you to respond from your higher self, not your hurt self. When you choose peace, you protect not only your relationships but also your integrity. You remain someone who others can trust to stay steady, even in conflict. Peace also serves your mental health. Impulse drains energy through constant tension. It keeps the body in survival mode, producing anxiety and restlessness. Peace, in contrast, restores. It lowers stress, improves focus, and renews emotional strength. When you practice choosing peace, you cultivate a calm nervous system. Over time, you begin to notice that external chaos affects you less. Situations that once overwhelmed you now barely stir you. That's not numbness. It's resilience born from self-control. Practicing peace starts with small choices. When irritation arises in traffic, choose calm over complaint. When someone interrupts, choose patience over pride. When plans fall apart, choose acceptance over frustration. Each small choice builds your capacity for larger challenges. Peace grows through consistent practice, not sudden transformation. The more you choose it, the stronger it becomes until it becomes second nature. Impulse often promises satisfaction, but delivers regret. Peace promises effort, but delivers liberation. Every impulsive reaction steals your composure, while every peaceful choice strengthens it. The world often celebrates speed and aggression, but peace is the quiet revolution. It doesn't seek attention, it seeks alignment. It is not weakness. It is refined intelligence that refuses to be manipulated by emotion or circumstance. To live by peace is to live intentionally. You no longer chase validation through reactions. You don't need to mirror the chaos around you to prove your strength. You understand that calm is not the absence of fire. It's learning how to contain it. Peace doesn't demand silence. It teaches control. It allows emotion to move through you without dictating what comes next. There will be moments when choosing peace feels impossible, when every cell in your body wants to explode, defend, or argue. In those moments, remind yourself that peace is not about winning an external battle, but about preserving your inner equilibrium. Each time you choose it, you prove that your mind belongs to you, not to emotion. You rise above the storm instead of being carried by it. Over time, peace becomes not just a choice but a lifestyle. You begin to navigate life from a place of groundedness. People notice the steadiness in your tone, the patience in your actions, the confidence in your stillness. You become the calm presence in a chaotic world. That calm doesn't come from avoiding life. It comes from mastering it. Choosing peace over impulse is not a one-time decision. It's a lifelong discipline that shapes character, strengthens resolve, and elevates your entire existence. Peace is the highest form of power because it cannot be taken away by external chaos. When you choose peace every time, you no longer live at the mercy of your emotions. You act from wisdom, not reaction. You protect your integrity, your energy, and your freedom. Every time you stand at that crossroads between impulse and peace, remember, the temporary satisfaction of reaction will fade, but the stability of peace will stay. In a world that thrives on noise, peace is your quiet revolution, your proof that mastery begins when you no longer let impulse decide who you are.